Welcome to episode 43 of the Tax Professionals podcast. In this episode, we discuss whether you should be considering a career move or job change with James Howell, this episode's guest.
Welcome to the Tax Professionals podcast, the podcast dedicated to helping you improve your tax career. Here's your host, Jack Bonehill.
Without fail, the first thing I do with any tax advisor magazine is go straight to the job adverts. I'm quite nosy and I just find it interesting knowing what jobs are out there, particularly knowing the salary on the odd occasion that this is actually included. I don't have any intention of applying. I spent a lot of time thinking about what my career motivations and drivers are. The main ones for me are progression, development, good work-life balance and enjoyment, and I get all of those from my current role. But if I didn't have these things, I would certainly be considering a move. As tax professionals though, we tend to be loyal, so the thought of seriously considering a move rarely crosses our minds. But that can hold us back. So, this episode is all about helping you to decide whether you should be considering a career move or job change. I'm joined by James Howell, who provides free webinars to tax professionals, runs a UK Tax Summit each year with Peter Rainey and Pete Miller, and is owner of the tax recruitment company. It may be that you're in the right role already, and if so, that's great, and hopefully this episode will reinforce that. But if there's any possibility that you're not, then hopefully this episode will help you to see that and hopefully encourage you to explore your opportunities. The episode covers what the tax recruitment market looks like right now at roughly 8 minutes 30, before moving on to what the common career problems and reasons that tax professionals look to move jobs are at around 15 minutes 30. We then move on to indicators or signals that if you see these probably indicate that you should be considering a career move at around 23 minutes 30, before moving on to when you shouldn't be considering a move at around 28 minutes 45. At the end of the episode, at 33 minutes 15, we talk about how to find a tax job which is actually the right fit for you if you are going to consider a move. If you'd like to book a free chat with James to help you decide whether you should be considering a career move, then head on over to thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/free career chat. That's thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/free career chat. Make sure you don't miss out. Make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes of the podcast. Make sure you don't miss any future episodes of the podcast by subscribing or signing up for email notifications at thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/subscribe. The email notifications will give you a brief summary of each episode so that you can decide if you want to listen. Episodes are bi-weekly and are released on Mondays. Without further ado, let's get to it. So, just to start us off then today, James, could you tell us a little bit about you and how you help tax professionals?
Yeah, thanks, Jack, and thank you very much for inviting me on the podcast. I think what you've been doing over the last couple of years has been brilliant, and I've really enjoyed listening to many of your podcasts over that time. Like you, actually, I've been in tax for 13 years, and I was working out the day. I think I've visited over 200 accountancy firms and tax teams in that time. So that's why my hair's so grey now. But I run a lot of, aside from running the tax recruitment company, I run a lot of free tax training webinars. It's something I really enjoy doing, but it's also something I like to do to try and sort of perhaps set us apart from other recruitment companies. And we run those with the likes of sort of Peter Rainey, Pete Miller, a number of the sort of leading tax speakers in the UK, and they're free for people to listen to. And we've had a lot of nice feedback. I think we get about 400 or 500 people listening to them. During COVID, we had, I think, 830 for one, which I think it was partly because everyone was at home and had the time for the webinars. But it was a great webinar that Peter Rainey ran. So that's our record so far. I actually set up the UK Tax Investigations Conference about 11 years ago, which until the pandemic was run at the ICAW every year. And I'm delighted that's still running as a conference. And the head of the revenue spoke at that quite a few times and things. And since setting up the tax recruitment company, I also set up the UK Tax Summit, which is a virtual tax conference that was run every year. It might go back to face-to-face this year. We're not sure yet. But we've had over 600 tax professionals come to that, albeit virtually, over the last 2 years. So that's sort of my experience in tax. But I guess I genuinely enjoy and like helping people find really good new jobs that suit what they're trying to achieve in their career and suit them as people. And I get a huge amount of satisfaction when you get really nice sort of feedback from candidates and clients as well, because obviously it's very important to us that, you know, we help them find the best people. But it's really nice when the two match up well, and thankfully usually it does. And get a great deal of satisfaction from that as well. I guess tell me if I'm talking too much here, Jack, by the way, but I guess what I think we like to think sets us apart from your average recruiter is we like to spend a lot of time really understanding the needs of our candidates, and when we first speak to someone, we like to really understand what their sort of key career drivers and motivations are. And I guess really try to understand what's the type of role that would be the right one for them and the right type of firm for them, as opposed to just sort of telling them about lots of roles we've got. We like to really understand what the needs are of the candidate and spend a lot of time talking to them about that. We also spend quite a lot of time helping people with their CVs and just getting them prepared for the whole interview process and what that might entail and the sort of things they need to be sort of ready for when they do start looking for a new role. And it can be sometimes when we have these discussions with candidates, we don't feel it's the right time for them to necessarily be making a move, and we will be honest with them in that situation and not try and encourage them to look for a role if it's just not right for them at that time. But equally, if it is, then we help them with that and stuff.
On the free webinars, actually, so I saw that you were doing them before I started the podcast. So I kind of knew a bit about you and that you were doing that quite a while ago now. And I think they're great as well. It's a really good free advice to tax professionals on lots of different topics as well. I think I've even seen that there's been things covered about like HMRC disputes and things like that as well with certain people.
Yes, we've done a few of those. We've done one with Gary Brothers and Dawn Register, who's a tax partner at BDO. But yeah, we cover really a lot of the key tax issues that tax professionals face. And so for people, anyone listening, would be very welcome to listen to those if they would like to. Yeah,
I think you've also got some like written interviews with some tax people as well to kind of talk about their.
We've got a section called My Career in Tax where we interview quite senior tax professionals and find out about their career in tax, and they provide advice in that as to advice for people who are looking to progress their career in tax and things they've learned in their career and things. And I think they're very interesting articles, and we've actually turned them into sort of video interviews this year. And there's a few we've just recently published. So again, if you go onto our website and look at My Career in Tax section, that's where you can find that. But yeah, hopefully you'd find that really interesting as well.
Yeah, I think that they actually inspired the one series I've started doing, the Tax Career Success Secrets, because I thought about doing them anyway, but when I saw the ones that you'd done, I thought they're actually great too. I'm sure it would be nice in audio form as well. So they're definitely helpful for people. Definitely.
I must say, I find it fascinating chatting to the people, you know, because they're all people who've had like 20, 30 years experience in tax, and there's so much you can learn from people like that. And, we've chatted to some really nice people as well. So, I've really enjoyed doing those.
Yeah, good. And they're good to read as well. So what is the tax recruitment market actually looking like right now? Obviously, we've had the pandemic, and I suppose in some ways we're still within it, but it's kind of looked like it's gone up and down throughout the pandemic. What's it like right now?
Well, in all my time in tax recruitment, I've never known it like this, Jack, actually. It really is quite unprecedented, the market at the moment. There is a lot of demand for tax professionals and experienced tax professionals across the board in all types of, both private client, corporate tax, VAT, in-house. There's just huge demand for people. So it's really making it very interesting. And it's certainly a good time to potentially look at career moves if you are thinking around that way, because there's lots of really interesting opportunities, and more different types of opportunities than I've ever seen before. We're seeing a lot more. Employers are offering a lot more flexibility. Hybrid working is obviously very common now, which would never have been the case before the pandemic. And I think what I think's really good is firms seem to be trying a lot harder to offer really good career progression plans for people when they take roles. And also being a lot more flexible about the type of work potentially they could do and fitting in with what the candidate wants to get from the role. So it's a really interesting time for the tax recruitment market at the moment. So I've really, really enjoyed working in it in the last couple of years. And the pandemic seems to have been, dare I say it, a very positive thing, I think, for tax recruitment.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds a bit like actually then that at the moment, it's a candidates market rather than an employer's market. So do you think that's probably driven a bit the change in terms of like there being more of a focus on having a good career progression plan in place and offering this additional flexible work and just to try and attract people because there's a lack of them?
Yeah, very much so, very much so. And firms are having to be quite competitive with salaries as well. So that's obviously a good thing for people. I mean, I never say to someone you should move because you can earn more money. It should be you should earn more money if you move, I think, but it shouldn't be the reason you're moving, But that's obviously been a positive of the situation as well for people. Just generally just a huge amount of opportunities out there at the moment.
Yeah, I've heard as well, actually, I don't know whether you've seen this, but because now there's a lot more flexible working, some people could have a job that would usually be in London, say, but they only have to work there 1 day a week and the rest is from home, but get like a London salary weighting. Have you seen anything like that as well?
I don't know if you would get necessarily a London salary weighting, but you would, pay has improved, but I sometimes you can get that. But I mean, to give you an example of how flexible people are being, I actually placed someone this year who lives in Australia and works for a firm part-time. They had a lot of corporate tax experience in the UK and have moved out to Australia for a few years. And she got in touch with me and we had a chat. And, I think she's found her, I think, a lovely role. But you'd never have thought 2 years ago that you could find roles for people who are based not just in Australia, but sort of 12 hours behind the UK time zone. And we've got lots of examples of that, of people based a long way from where their firm is based and working pretty much completely remotely. That's been another sort of positive, I think.
Yeah, I suppose it shows why people should be embracing this flexibility, really, because I'm sure that client of yours has now got a great candidate that they wouldn't have had without being able to provide that flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great for both parties, and I've had some lovely emails off both the client and the candidate following them taking the role and since they've been in the role. So it's that's another good positive that's come out of the pandemic, I think.
Yeah, definitely. You did say something about kind of like trying to place people in the right job rather than just place them in a job. How is it that you go about doing that?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. I mean, we offer like career coaching calls with candidates where the idea of the call really is to discuss and talk through what are the key sort of career drivers and motivations for that person. And everyone has very different career drivers and motivations. And I think by having a good chat about that, you really start to get a feel, both us and the candidate, as to the type of role that they might be looking for. And sometimes it can be quite enlightening for the candidate. And for us, we want to place the right candidates in the right roles because they're happy and it means that they'll hopefully say nice things about us to other people they know in the world of tax. But also we don't want to place wrong people in the wrong roles because also our clients won't get a positive result from it. And you know, we're in this for the long term. We're not sort of people who are just in tax recruitment for the short term. I've worked in tax for over 13 years myself, and I don't intend going anywhere else now, you know, and so your reputation is really important. And I just personally believe that. I get great pleasure from placing someone in a new role and it being a great move for them, and them being really happy and fulfilled in the new role. And you know, it's just a really nice thing to achieve with what we do, and that's just really important to us. So yeah, just having those career coaching calls, I think, are super important for people, and both us and the candidate taking some proper time out to discuss that together before we even start looking at what type of roles are out there. Because I get some people who'll just say to me, please send me any roles that you think would be relevant. Well, if I haven't spoken to them, it's hard to know what roles are relevant for them, because it's understanding what type of culture, what type of firm, what type of work they want to do. That's just really important. And until you've had that conversation, you can't really provide them with the right opportunity that matches their needs and what they're trying to achieve with their career.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. So when people come to you and have these career coaching chats, then what would you say is kind of the common problem or challenge that they have that you, I suppose, help them sort with those chats?
I think it's just really understanding what makes them happy in their career and their role, you know, and that can vary hugely for people. You know, some people, status is very important. Other people, having a lot of autonomy in their role is very important. For other people, wanting to feel like they're getting a lot of professional development opportunities and support. You know, other people, you know, really like working in a team and don't like lots of autonomy, you know, and other people like to be part of what they feel like is an exciting sort of goal that's trying to be achieved by a firm, and I guess sort of like being part of an exciting story where a firm might grow and develop into a very different firm from when they might have started. It's all sorts of factors, and you know, finding out what type of tax work people like doing, what type of tax work people would like to do in the future, whether they want to specialise in a certain sector and things, what type of culture. You know, I could sort of go on for ages, but there's just all sorts. We sort of try to get them to sort of really think about that and really understand what's important to them, and then it's then after that we then start talking about what might be the type of opportunity and roles that we might be working on that could match that. And if we don't have any at the time, then we wait till they come along and they you know, it's the right opportunity for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I suppose a lot of people really, I don't know whether you find this in having these chats, but a lot of people don't really think that much about where they want to go long term and the type of firm that's right for them and the type of work-life balance and all these other things that you kind of pointed out there. Is that kind of what you see when you have these calls, and that people haven't really thought about them much beforehand, and you've helped them think about it and helped them realise what the answer is?
Yeah, those? And I think, you know, I've personally probably visited about 200 accountancy firms in my career, and so you get a real good understanding of the different cultures, the different ways in which firms work. And if you know, most people have probably only worked in 2 or 3 firms at the most, so they don't know, I guess, what cultures, what type of firms are out there apart from the ones that they've worked in. They might have a feel for it, but not really understand it. So I guess as well, it's like educating them on the opportunities that actually might be more suited to them, or the type of firm that might be more suited to them. Because if they don't know about them, then they're not going to know about them, are they? You know,
yeah.
You know, like some people might be like quite fixated on wanting to work in the Big Four, and that might not be right for them. Equally, people might have a perception of the Big Four that's not true, and actually the Big Four could be the right environment for them, you know. And I guess I have quite good insight, and so do my team, as to what it is like to work at those firms, and we can discuss that with them and perhaps open their eyes or also confirm their thoughts as well. It could be like we agree with what they're thinking, and you know, but I think it's only from having that discussion that you get that. Yeah, you open your eyes to what the opportunities are out there.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because I suppose you don't know what you don't know really. And particularly early on in your career, as you said, really, if you only worked at one or maybe two or three places, you might think that everywhere is like that, but they're really not, are they? They can be so different. The core can always be providing tax advice or doing tax work, but everything that fits around that could be completely different from employer to employer.
And I think I can't encourage someone to take a role at a firm unless I actually believe strongly in how good the culture is at that particular firm and how well suited that firm is to someone. It's just not the way I can work, and most of my team, well, I think all of my team are like that, so equally we tend to only work with firms that we really like and really think would be a good home for our candidates.
Yeah, which is obviously a good thing for anyone that's looking for a job. So kind of moving on a little bit then. So what would you say are the most common reasons that tax professionals at the moment are looking to move jobs?
I think I was thinking about this before I called. I think the most common probably is feeling that they aren't getting the progression opportunities that they'd like to have within their firm, both in terms of like going up to a higher level in whether that's from assistant manager to tax manager, or just getting the progression opportunities in terms of developing their knowledge and skills. That's a very common theme we find with people. And also sometimes the other probably big one is people feeling just like the culture in the firm they're at isn't suited to them, and wanting to find a culture that perhaps is more suited to them. Other people, the flexible and home working thing comes up occasionally, but I think a lot of firms have become more progressive on that in recent times, and salary often comes up. But I think the biggest two is career progression and perhaps the culture in the firm.
Yeah, I can completely understand the career progression one, because that one's massive for me. I would not ever like to be stale and not learning, even if it is just learning something else rather than progressing to the next role. So I can understand why people do find that, I suppose, a big reason to want to move. And actually, from some people I've spoken to, I thought a lot of accountancy firms out there provided kind of good, clear progression. But actually, from the amount of people I've been speaking to recently, I've been really surprised to find out that there's almost like no progression.
Yeah, like quite a few firms we work with, they from day one put together career progression plans and also provide like mentors within the firm for people when they join. And that's, the mentor might be, and usually is, someone outside of their team. And I think that's super important, because then you're getting reasonably independent advice and support from someone who's not part of your team. But I think, if you don't have a clear progression plan with your current role, or don't feel your firm seems that motivated to do that, and if that is an important thing for you, then I definitely think it's worth having a think about, well, what other opportunities could be there out there, because there are a lot of firms who provide that and do it really well, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely there are. I had someone contact me fairly recently actually and say, I'm not CTA qualified yet, and basically my employer won't let me do anything apart from basic admin and basic returns until I become CTA qualified. And I know from my team, for example, the people who come into ours as juniors almost get stuck in on advisory work from day one, even if it's just helping on it. And obviously you can't advise immediately from day one, but you can definitely help on it and experience those things. So I think if you've got any worry at all that you're not having the variety of work that you want as well, then you can probably find that variety in a different employer.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Do you think there's kind of any, I suppose, signals or indicators that I suppose almost show someone that they should be thinking about having a move?
Yeah, I think we've just, what we've just talked about is super important. If you feel you're not progressing your tax skills or knowledge, I think that's something you really want to sort of be concerned about, especially if that's important to you. A lack of progression. I think, like I've just said, I think your firm should really be providing you with like a proper career plan, and you know the milestones you need to reach if you want to get to a certain level in the firm, and then if you have got that, and then you potentially have sort of quite a few broken promises from the people you work with, then that's not a great situation to be in, and you perhaps it's a bit of a red light in terms of the culture of the firm and whether it's the right firm for you. But if you just feel like you're stagnating and you're ready for a new challenge, if those thoughts are really starting to get those a lot, that's a real sign that possibly it's time to look for a new role.
Yeah, I think probably excuses as well, actually. I've heard that quite a few times, where there seems to be an excuse as to why something can't happen, whether it's a promotion, whether it's going on a certain training course, whether it's helping out on a certain piece of work. Because usually an excuse is, I suppose, exactly that, really, an excuse. And if they really wanted to help and get around it, then they could, if they just spent a bit of time on it.
Yeah, and I think if you really value someone, you just make it happen, wouldn't you? And I think one of the massive, I think tax professionals generally are extremely loyal people, and you just want to make sure you're getting that loyalty repaid by your employer. If they have promised you something and they're not doing it, then that's not showing a great deal of loyalty to you, I don't think.
Yeah.
So some of those signals are stuff you do want to, I think if you're getting them, then it might be time for you to reach out to someone like us or another professional recruiter and have a chat with them.
So if someone probably should be considering making a career move right now, why is it that you think sometimes people don't think they should be considering a move?
I think it's fear of the unknown and that sort of better the devil you know, and also I think if you haven't moved much in your career, or if not at all, it possibly is quite a scary prospect, because whilst you might not be happy where you are, you sort of know people, you feel relatively comfortable there, you feel quite secure in your job, and so it can be quite a scary thing to move. But from my experience, it can be also one of the most exciting and fulfilling things you can do. And I think if you're working with the right recruiter, they'll try and make sure you move to a firm that really is suited to you and is suited to where you're trying to get in your career and the type of culture you really want to find, But I think going back to the point I just said just now, I think tax professionals sometimes can be too loyal, and that can potentially hold them back. And if you're not getting that loyalty back from your employers, then you really want to ask yourself the question, why am I being so loyal to them, really, But yeah, I just be careful you're not holding yourself back because of the fear of the unknown, or that sort of better the devil you know attitude.
Yeah, I suppose as well, you can have this concept of the grass is always greener, and I suppose you can almost go too far the other way. Yes. So I suppose really getting out there and having chats with people and trying to get a feel for what is actually realistic, and knowing what motivates you, knowing what you want out of a job, all those things have got to be important in, I suppose, making you not think the grass is always greener, and then equally not thinking that it's never greener at the same time.
Yeah, and equally don't always think it's always totally greener as well, but I think, and like I said earlier, we might speak to some people sometimes just think they're not ready. They're not ready to move. They're not actually needing to move at the moment. But equally, you can speak to other people and think, God, it's such the right thing for them to move. And it just seems a shame that they don't, because of perhaps misplaced loyalty at times,
Yeah. Loyalty is definitely a funny one, isn't it? Because I suppose I have a sense of it as well in a way, but as you mentioned, really, it's two ways, isn't it? Because you can be loyal, but if you're getting nothing in return for that loyalty, then it's time to think about something else, isn't it?
It's a great quality, and I think one of the most important qualities anyone can have, really, but it can also hold you back if you're not careful as well. And you just need to make sure it doesn't sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You mentioned a few times kind of there's times when you basically think, oh, you shouldn't be considering a move, you're not ready for a move.
Yeah.
Why is it that you think that then sometimes? I suppose what qualities are there, or what things are apparent that make you think that?
I think sometimes they might have almost the green is grass, the sort of attitude can be too far the other way sometimes. You think, actually, you've got a really good situation where you are now, and I would probably say you want to stay there for another 6 months, 12 months. And, things like if you're about to complete your exams. Now, you can change firms there, and firms will support you with that and usually will take on your training costs, and, there won't be any cost to you financially for doing that. But you want to say to yourself, well, is it, I'm being quite well looked after in my firm. They're providing me with quite a lot of time to complete my exams. They're being quite understanding. I would question whether that's the right time to move for you. Equally, I think outside of work, if you've got some big life changes you might be going through, like you might be moving house or getting married or having a baby, is that the ideal time to move jobs? Speaking from my own experience, I moved jobs when I had my first baby, and that was quite tough. I didn't think I hadn't had a child before, and the first baby, when I had my first son, I moved jobs, and it was like, that was quite a lot to take on, I think it's good to do it when you've got a reasonably calm, your life outside of work is quite calm, but equally, if things like about to complete exams, or it might be you're very close to getting promoted, why not just sort of give that another couple of months? As long as you do give it, I think you'd put a time frame on that. If you're being promised promotion and then say, I'll give them another 2 months, and then you give them another 2 months after that, another 2 months after that, then you could end up wasting 6 months of your career when with an employer that's not really promising what they said they deliver on that front and stuff. So yeah.
I think that one about promotion actually is a good point, because if you were say a senior manager and you were to move somewhere else as a senior manager, but you thought you were close to becoming director, then you've got to have enough time to then prove yourself to the new employer that you're ready for that role. Whereas I suppose your old employer already knows whether or not you are, don't they?
Yes, exactly. But I think you want them to give you some sort of time frame, and then, if you don't achieve that promotion within that time frame, then it's time to possibly move somewhere else where you might achieve it more quickly, because moving jobs sometimes can mean you go up the ladder more quickly, as well as the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, just I suppose side note then, so I imagine most people end up moving like sideways almost, so from a tax manager to a tax manager role. Do you see it much where people do kind of go up a grade almost as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'd say a lot of the people we place, they move. When they move, they go up a grade, and it can be because they perhaps should have got that promotion a bit earlier in their current firm, I'd say most moves aren't sideways; they're upwards.
Okay, interesting. Definitely on that one. Do you find that it's a more difficult move when someone's moving up rather than sideways, because they're probably taking on more responsibility? It might be a slightly more stressful job, say. So do you ever get kind of people concerned about those things for an upwards move?
Yeah, I think so. But I think usually they're ready for it, and are probably a bit frustrated it's not happening in their current firm. And they've got a point to prove, so they're sort of ready for it. And going back to what I said earlier, if I didn't think they weren't ready for it, then I wouldn't encourage them to make that move yet, But I think most people are ready for it, so it's not actually a particularly scary or challenging thing to do.
When someone is looking to move jobs, what do you think that they should do to ensure that they do get a job that is a right fit for them?
Yeah, I think really important, if it's not going to be with, a recruiter, sit down with an independent person and have a really good, and I'm only independent, someone who's, you don't work with, who's not a close family member, to talk through what your key career drivers and career motivations are. And ideally with someone who is a career coach or an experienced career person or recruiter, and really decide like what is the stuff that really motivates you, what do you really want to achieve from your next role, what's the type of culture you want to work in. And once you've got all that clear in your head, You know, without wanting to give ourselves a plug, I think working with a good quality specialised recruiter is then really important, because they will have a really good feel for the types of opportunities in the marketplace, but also they should have a good understanding of the types of firms that would suit you as a tax professional, and can point you in the direction of the right type of opportunity. You know, just seeing an advert on LinkedIn or an advert in Taxation Magazine, it's not going to tell you a great deal about the firm or the type of opportunity. Whereas speaking to a good quality recruiter, they should be able to give you a lot of insight into that firm and that role, because they would have had a lot of detailed discussions with a firm. They should hopefully understand and know a lot of people in the firm and the culture there, and possibly even placed a lot of people there as well. You know, and then I think, you know, don't be held back by the fear of the unknown. Equally, don't just jump into anything that comes along, and, you know, make sure you've really thought about it and it really feels right. I think it needs to feel right in your head and your heart, because they can be two quite different things, you know. And I think if both are saying, yes, this is the right thing to do, then it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. So I would say the two most important things to do then really are, I suppose, understand what you want out of your next job and longer term, so that kind of job's in line with that. And then the second one really is have someone you can speak to, I suppose, fully understand what's out there and help you find out something that fits those, which in most cases will be a recruiter. How do you think people can know whether a recruiter has their best interests at heart, or is just trying to place them? Because obviously that might be something that's quite difficult for someone to figure out.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you definitely want to be working with someone who's specialised in tax, and appears to have worked in tax recruitment for a good few years, because they should have a good understanding of the market, and they're not just trying to, I guess, they haven't just got into a new job and they're just trying to place people in a job. I think that's important. You know, perhaps have a look on their website or their LinkedIn profile to see if they've got a lot of sort of quite good recommendations from other candidates saying how they found the experience of working with them. You know, that should give you some reassurance. I think that first conversation with them, you know, they should be really trying to find out about what is important to you, what drives you, as opposed to, are you working corporate tax? Here's a corporate tax job I've got. Yeah. And I'm not, and I very much hope there's very few recruiters out there like that, you know. And I should say, I think, you know, most recruiters do a fantastic job and aren't all just about trying to place people in roles. They do really care about their candidates and want to find them the right role, because, as I said earlier, I get a huge amount of satisfaction when I get a nice email from someone saying how much they're enjoying a role and thanking me for helping them find it. That really means a lot, you know. And you know, we often talk in our team about wanting to change people's lives, and if you do find them a great role and that really enhances their career, it does change someone's life, and that's a lovely thing to be able to do for someone. I can't think what else, Jack, to say on that, but I think just do perhaps a little bit of research. You know, like I said, have a look see if you can find, you know, have a look on their LinkedIn profile. Are there good recommendations for them? Have a look, speak to colleagues if they've had any, you know, if a colleague said they've had a good experience with a recruiter, that's quite a good recommendation to go on. I think people who've been around in the market for quite a long time means that they're doing a good job. They wouldn't stay in the market if they weren't doing a good job, both for candidates and for the clients. So hopefully that helps everybody.
Yeah, no, I think they're all good points. Just, I suppose, specifically then in relation to the tax recruitment company, is there kind of like a geographical area that you tend to cover, or do you cover, say, the whole of the UK?
Yeah, we cover the whole of the UK, and we've got people all over the UK. Well, I say that makes it sound like we're a massive team. We're not, and we don't want to ever be a massive team. Really, we like the size we are, but we've placed people, you know, from Cornwall down up to Scotland. And as I said earlier, someone even in Australia and into a UK firm, but that was her reaching out to us, But we cover the whole of the UK, and what we like to do, particularly in this sort of pandemic world, is have a proper sort of video chat and call with people before we start working with them, and like I said, really try to understand what their needs are and talk through the types of opportunities that could be out there for someone like that. And there are lots and lots of different opportunities at the moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it sounds like, anyway, if someone's kind of unsure whether now is the right time for them, you'd be happy to have a chat with them and I suppose help them figure out whether.
Absolutely. Yeah, don't feel you should only get in touch with us if you're thinking about you want to get a new job. I like to sort of just to have a chat with people, even if they're like 18 months, 2 years away from the next role, because when the perfect role comes along, they're on my radar then, and the perfect job might be 6 months away, a year away, 1 week away. You never know, but I also just like to think that people would see us as sort of good people just to talk to get independent career advice. I think another good thing to do, which has helped me a lot in my career, is have your own mentor. And some firms do provide mentors within their firm. But for example, my old boss is a mentor of mine. I speak to him regularly and I find him a great person just to talk to about work issues and advice and help and things. We're good friends as well, but he is unquestionably has been an amazing mentor for me, and I think it's really good for you to try and look out for someone like that because most people love helping people, especially if they like them, and I think talk to us, but get your own sort of mentor that can help you throughout your career.
Yeah. So if people do want to get in contact then or learn a bit more about you, James, where's the best place for them to go?
There's a few sort of places, but I guess our website would be a great starting point, which is quite easy to remember because it's www.taxrecruitment.co.uk. So all you've got to remember is the tax recruitment bit, really. And on there, you can just there's a few places where it says book a call with one of our team, and you just need to do that, and then that takes you through to actually our diaries, and you can book a call with us there and things. And I'm sure we can send you that after this if you want those details and things as well. But definitely, or LinkedIn, it can be find me on LinkedIn. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Be very happy to connect there, and you can speak to me on LinkedIn. But I personally really like a proper sort of chat with someone to really understand what their career needs and motivations and drivers are, so we can be looking out for the right roles for them, or we may have the perfect role for them. We've certainly got an awful lot of roles that we're working on at the moment. I've never known there'd be so many sort of interesting tax roles out there as there are at the moment. So there's a very strong chance we've got something that could be interesting for them.
Which is good. And I think to make it easy as well, then I will put a link in the show notes for this episode so that people can just go there, click on it, and it would take them straight to your calendar to book in a call with you. And I'll also put a link to the website as well.
That would be great. Thanks, Jack. And yeah, be very happy to pick. And like I said, don't think you should only get in touch because you're looking for a role. Just get in touch if you just like to have a chat and chew the fat over where you are with your career and are you on the right path, and are you doing the right thing? And usually people are, which is great. But if they're not, we can hopefully give you some useful advice as to what you might want to be thinking about doing next and where you might want to take your career and things.
Yeah, I suppose whatever happens, you might just get some reassurance that you're in the right job now, and it's good to continue with your career there.
Yeah, absolutely.
To book a chat with James, head on over to thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/free career chat. The show notes include links to things mentioned in this episode, including James's LinkedIn profile, the free webinars, and the interviews with successful tax professionals. The show notes are at thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com TTPP43. That's thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/TTPP43. And TTPP43 just stands for the Tax Professionals Podcast, episode 43. If you enjoyed the episode, subscribe or sign up for email notifications to make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes. The emails will give you a brief summary of each episode, which are bi-weekly and are released on Mondays. But that's it for this episode. I hope you liked the episode and have taken away some useful points to help you to progress, develop and improve your tax career. Until next time.